Hey everyone, it's David Somerville. I am recording this video with just what I have. I've got my computer here and just using the built-in camera, built-in mic, so the quality's not going to be amazing, but I am uploading it to YouTube rather than trying to stream it, because last time I streamed I had a bunch of tech issues. So I think this will probably be a lot higher quality. I thought we could just get together and look at a few things, talk over, talk through more stuff from the Primal, Dwarves, and Dragonborn, get a little bit more specific on what you're going to see in there, and maybe read part of the SSOP together, talk about some of that material, see where we go after that. I've got my list up here on the wall of things that I am working on for playing Gia. So yeah, we'll talk about a lot of stuff in the Primal, Dwarves, and Dragonborn document, and then also I want to talk a little bit about Prismanox. Not too much, because this is mostly a Plangia feed, but we'll see how much time this takes and how much fun we're having. So let's start by talking about the Primal, Dwarves, and Dragonborn, and because this is a low-tech video, I'm not going to show stuff on my screen. I'm just going to talk through it. Hopefully it's interesting. If not, skip to the end. I'm sure the tech on this will get better as I do it more often, but we're just getting started now. So I wanted to tell you what you can expect in Primal, Dwarves, and Dragonborn. We've got, and this is all sort of in the format that we're planning to have it appear on Drive-Thru RPG when it comes out. So we've got, first off, introduction, second, character options, which is the kinships for Primal Dragonborn and Primal Dwarves. Then we've got spells, feats, DM tools, which includes magic items, monsters, and then at least one adventure, and I still have to work on the second adventure. So just going through this, the introduction, this is meant to perhaps be some people's first introduction to playing GS, so it'll sort of give a big overview of what the world is, where to find out more about it. For everyone watching this stream, that's probably not really something that you're going to need too much of, but there might be some little nuggets in there you can pull out. Then we get into character options. We've already talked through Primal, Dwarves, and Dragonborn, I feel like a good bit here, so I'm going to sort of skip over the kinships, although I still like them a lot. And maybe we'll start out with spells. Spells are cool. That's fun. So we've got a bunch of new spells here, and I think I'll just go through and tell you about them. The first one is Acid Pool. So this is a 3rd level evocation spell, and you can create or cause a pool of acid to appear on the battlefield. It can be upcast to make the pool bigger, and as you can imagine, entering into the pool can cause problems, and it can also damage structures. Second is Burning Barrier. So it's a 5th level abjuration. It's a reaction when you're hit by an attack, and it's kind of shieldy, but it blocks the attack or increases your AC by 5, and also deals an explosion of fire damage around you, which is a lot of fun. I've got a cool one that I really like that's brand new. It's called Fire to Snow. It's a 2nd level transmutation. It's a reaction that you take when you're dealt fire damage or from an attack or from a failed saving, or from making it. When you're dealt fire damage. Excuse me. So if you would take fire damage, then you change the elements. So the damage is converted to cold and halved, and then the ground in a 10-foot cone between you and the source of the damage becomes difficult terrain. So basically, like, it's coming at you, and you twist the fire into snow, it reduces the damage, makes difficult terrain around you. It's a very cinematic spell. There's one called Gather Fire, which is a 2nd level evocation. You need to have an open flame nearby, and you consume it during casting. It's a bonus action, and basically you're like reach into fire and pick it up, and then until the spell ends, you're resistant to fire damage, and you can hurl it at an enemy. So it's sort of an opportunistic fireball. There's a new one called Guardian Echo, which is You basically leave an echo of yourself. It's clearly magical. It can't be mistaken as you. It's sort of shimmery and magic. But you leave it where you were, and then if something tries to move near it, it smacks at them. And they can be upcast, so they can do more damage at higher levels and last longer at higher levels, which is kind of cool. There's a really good story possibility there where like high level guardian echoes that are just like cast who knows how long ago, and they're just still there guarding these halls of stone. Lightning Pact. This is kind of a cool one. So it's a 3rd level evocation. It takes a minute to cast. It lasts up to an hour. You touch a willing creature, and this harmless electrical charge passes between you, then vanishes. And until the spell ends, while you're within 30 feet of each other and you can see each other, either of you can use a bonus action to summon a bolt of lightning that runs in a 5-foot wide, 30-foot line between you. So basically you just like, you have another person, and at any time either one of you can trigger just a bolt of lightning. So if you guys get on either side of a string of enemies and turn it on, it zaps right through them. It's really cool. Upcast for not more damage, for a sort of a web effect. So if you upcast and there's another one, then when you turn it on, there's like a triangle of lightning or a square of lightning. So lots of oh dear, it's a really good ambush spell. There's kind of a weird one that I really like because I like story spells that may or may not see the light of day. It's called Living Memory. It's a 7th level illusion, and the idea is basically you can conjure a memory of someone as if they were there. They can't interact with creatures or objects, they can't cast spells, but they know what the creature knew, and they have the creature's mental abilities. So you could cast this to summon the spirit of your long dead mentor and or lost love, and commune with them. And one nice thing about the spell is they can dispel themselves at their choosing, so it prevents sort of weird, sort of abusive situations where they're not trapped there. They can go away anytime that they want, but as long as they want to stay, they can stay until dispelled. Let's see, we've got Marrow Meld, where you meld a piece of bone, shell, or other organic matter into your skin, turning it into temporary armor. So basically you just like pick up something and like turn it into armor on your body. This is kind of a cool one. It's called Protection from Fang and Thorn, and it's like protection from good and evil, but it applies to beasts, dragons, monstrosities, and plants. It's got a lot of good stuff in there. A really nasty one called Scale Pox. It's a 2nd level transmutation. Lasts for 24 hours. You touch a creature and cause a sudden rash of painful scales to appear on them. You choose the color of the scales. They can be black scales or blue or green or red or white. And they deal a certain amount of damage when you cast it. But then they just stay on the creature until they use an action to scratch them off. But when they're scratched off, they explode, doing twice as much damage as they originally did. So it's like instant damage, it's annoying, and then when they scratch it off, there's a later explosion. So a kind of a really nasty, mean-spirited spell that I like a lot. There's one called Stone Mind that protects you against scrying, thought reading. There's one called Vault Fall, where you can reach up and basically bring down the ceiling, or a magical copy of it. So you just like reach up, and however high the ceiling is, it increases the amount of damage that happens when that ceiling comes down and smashes all creatures who are at your head height or higher. So basically, if you're a dwarf and you're surrounded by tall folk and you cast Vault Fall, everyone except you and your other dwarves get hammered down and humbled. And then one called Venom Spit, where you spit at the face of an enemy, deal some damage, and you maybe blind them. So yeah, it's dwarvish stuff, it's dragon stuff, it's a lot of fun things. We obviously have who the spells are for. The lowest level is 1st level. We don't have any cantrips in here. And the highest is, I think, 7th with Living Memory. Yeah. So that's it's a quick overview of those. They're super fun. I think they're going to be great. And obviously, we'll be posting to the Patreon first, getting some playtest feedback, and then eventually rolling it out to Drive-Thru RPG. That is that. We're also working on some feats. We've got one called Immutable, which makes it harder for other creatures to change your form or teleport you, makes you a little tougher. One called Traditional, which has to do with honoring a practice and getting a boost. That one's still under construction. We also have an idea for something called Flawed Feats, which is like a cursed object. It's basically, it gets good, strong, powerful benefits, but also comes with a drawback that kind of makes a trade-off of power and problem. And what's nice about Flawed Feat is that when you take it, you can discuss with your GM, whether or not the flaw can ever be removed. And if they think that it can, they might just say, like, no, like, the only way I'm letting you take this is if you have to deal with that forever. But what a DM can say is, sure, that flaw could be removed, and here's what you have to do to get there, and this gives some suggestions. So a certain number of downtime hours spent training with a teacher, or embarking on a quest, or discovering certain secrets. So role play, combat, exploration opportunities. If you achieve your DM's flaw resolution goal, you can remove the flaw the next time you gain a feat or use the ability score increase feature. So basically, the flaw will be there either forever or until the next time you can take a feat. And it won't prevent you from taking another feat, that's when it will go away. So it's sort of, you have a few levels to try and do stuff to get rid of it. So it's kind of nice. It gives your character a real flaw and a problem at the table, also new powers, and gives you a potential story arc to explore. Curious what you think about that. Let us know. We'd love to hear about that. Let's see. Feral makes it harder for creatures to grapple you, makes you meaner with natural weapons, but it also, the flaw there is that you have disadvantage. Basically, if a creature attacks you, you are inclined to focus on them, and it makes it harder for you to pay attention to anything else when you take an injury from someone. So it limits your options in combat, but makes you harder to control, which is nice. And again, maybe that flaw can come off, and then you've just got the benefits, but you work to get them. We're still working on this one, but I really want it to work. We'll see. But for both dragons and dwarves, well, I want to be careful here. I'm not trying to talk about any kinship stereotypes. But for this document, thinking about, anyway, especially for dragons, I'll just say that we have the greedy feat. So greedy, basically, we're still working it out, but it has to do with owning or obtaining magic items. Valuable items, which we're still working to define. And the idea is that, like, if you admire your items and spend time with them, you can get certain bonuses. And so you are sort of inclined to get and then spend time sort of gazing at your treasures, and then you're going to be able to do certain new things. A flaw is that when you see an item that you would value, then you have to make a saving throw or else be charmed by it, and then you can't willingly leave its sight. So you kind of you don't want to walk away from that really valuable thing. It's a fun idea. We have to make sure it works. I'm not 100% on it. But I really want it to work because I personally would love to grab a character with a greedy feat. Okay, then we have magic items. So we have a bunch. We have the common magic items. We have them at all rarity levels. So common, uncommon, rare, rare, legendary. Common are the Horn of Quickwine and the Scale Pick. Uncommon are the Hoarding Skull, Lens of Color Seeking, and Toon Ball. Rare are the Resolute Pick, Ring of Violent Breath, Very rare are items from each of the chromatic dragons. So black dragon tooth, blue dragon horn, green dragon eye, red dragon scale, white dragon claw, and the greater ring of violent breath. And then the legendaries are the cloak of the shadowed wormling and the hammer of the dwarvish elders. I'm not going to read all of these because I think it'll take up too much time, and we're still kind of making them. We are adding an optional curse on these, which would just like a pre-written curse you can attach to any of these items in case they want to be part of a horde. I'll talk about a couple of these. So one is the Ring of Violent Breath. This basically, like, you have a magic ring. When a breath action is used against you, you can capture that in the ring. I guess it doesn't have to just be against you. I guess if you are a Dragonborn, you could also breathe into it. But again, some of these details are still be working out. But then you can unleash that. So it is both protection and attack tied to Draconic Breath. Let's see. There is the... Let's see. I'll talk about the Cloak of the Shadowed Wormling. It's so weird. I love this stuff. Okay, so this is a wondrous item. It's a cloak. It's legendary, and it requires attunement. It's a shimmering cloak of black, blue, green, red, or white scales. And it's barely visible in bright light while unworn. And once donned, it appears to vanish entirely as it melts into your shadow. So it's this invisible cloak, basically. While you're attuned to it, when you take damage from a melee weapon attack that reduces you to less than half your total hit points, you must make a DC 11 charisma saving throw, which you can choose to fail. So basically, if you get taken down to half or less by a melee attack, you either have to let this thing go or try and control it. If you let it go, the cloak makes the bite attack of the wormling of the associated color. So basically, something hits you really hard, your cloak, like a wormling of that color, bites at the creature. Okay. So far, so good. And it can only make that once a long rest. But if the cloak kills the creature it attacks, the cloak becomes heavier and a tiny or small creature can no longer wear it. While it has the heavy property, when it makes the next attack, if it kills a creature, you gain 1 level of exhaustion, which cannot be lifted while you are attuned to the cloak. And when it attacks again, it makes a bite attack of a young dragon. Oh, sorry, I got mixed up. Basically, each time it kills a creature, the dragon in the cloak grows. So it starts off making a wormling attack, then it makes a young dragon attack, then it makes an adult dragon attack. And if it makes a bite attack of an adult dragon of that color and kills a creature, then the cloak transforms into an adult dragon of that color, and you are no longer attuned to it. What? See, this is why we gotta finish polishing them. I shouldn't be reading these mechanics. It turns into a full-grown dragon, and the DM decides how it feels about you. So basically, you have this intangible dragon that you are wearing that is growing, and then eventually, if it consumes enough, then it becomes a full dragon right there, which may or may not like you, depending on anything that the DM decides. It's so strange. It's just bonkers, and I really like it. Let's see. I could read you a few of these other ones. There's one called the Tune Ball, which is an uncommon item. It's a little sphere. It's like a size of a baseball, and you can roll it along a surface, and it plays a tune descriptive of the surface's appearance and texture, such as a soft flute for grass, a drum for stone, a stringed instrument for wood, or a dissonant horn for blood. And the volume and pace of the song match the speed at which the ball rolls. So basically, you like roll it down. If you're rolling it fast, it's like louder and faster. If you roll it really gently, it's quiet and soft. And then the reason it's uncommon is because if it rolls over part of a surface which is other than it appears, it falls silent until it returns to a normal part of the surface. So basically, you can imagine dwarves rolling tune balls down, tunnel floors and listening to the sound that comes back in order to decide how to mine. And for you, it's great for searching out magical entrances or detecting illusions. There are others, but we'll leave them alone for now. Okay, then we've got monsters. We've got a bunch. I don't know if there's a bunch, but there's some. So we have the first one is the Arcanaf, which basically is this huge flying manta ray ambush predator. So imagine it's a desert dweller. So imagine you're in a desert and you look up and there's like this manta ray floating in the sky above you. And basically what it does is it floats in heated air high above deserts, and it sends down bolts of lightning from a clear blue sky on victims. And then it swoops down to siphon life force and arcane magic from victims that it's slain. It's attracted to arcane magic, and it's visible as a glowing shape overhead at night as it absorbs starlight. So it's floating, absorbs starlight, strikes lightning, comes down, feeds off of those it slays, and goes back up. Really good tier 2 kind of challenge, sort of like a rock, where you deal with one of these out in the desert. It's a real problem, especially if you have any limitation on your range or can't fly. And, it's sort of this lonely, weird, scary, sort of draconic aberration sort of creature. Then there's the Bajati, which is a giant white raven with enormous, heavy caribou antlers that weigh it down, and it has 4 wings. It mostly hops. It can sort of fly up suddenly and hurl ice shards. It's extremely territorial and hates every other living thing. It's a mountain-dwelling monstrosity, and it fills its domain with these ice sculptures, these sort of abstract shapes that only make sense to it. It's kind of like think of like a Yeti in terms of challenge level, sort of. But yeah, a lot of story and location implications there. I really like this one. This is a Denu. You can think of kind of like unicorn level. But it's non-magical. It is a swimming axolotl-like draconic creature. It's found in mountain lakes and underground reservoirs. It's iridescent black, and it purifies water with acid. It dyes the shore with brilliant colors, and it can clean wounds, but it will accept no impurity in its water. So this is a creature that's, you might find in a lake, underground cave, body of water. You know it because of the sort of like rainbow dyed shores, and it's just like crystal clear water. It can heal your wounds, but if you befoul its water, you are in so much trouble. Sort of a cool creature. I like that one. We have one that we may or may not include, which is sort of like a pillar of stone infused by an ancient dwarvish spirit. We'll see whether or not that survives this round. Gathergast, which is this giant hermit crab, but instead of a crab, it is skeletons that have sort of been merged together. So you can imagine just like a giant shell being pulled along by skeletal arms. It's a swamp-dwelling creature over in Ghostmire is like a great place to encounter it, and it can speak with the voices of creatures it absorbed. And then the Obsidian Warrior is it's a construct, and it's made of black volcanic glass, and it is anti-magic, so it can sort of like it's really good against magical attacks, and it doesn't speak. It's just silent. It's just kind of a mook. So those creatures, we're still kind of developing their details. We've also got an Earth Dragon, which seems very cool. And then there's a couple more. Shatter Drifter, which is cool. It's this medium-sized, or maybe large, it's a crystalline ooze that can flow or harden at will. It's like a non-Newtonian liquid. So it has pseudopods, but then also shards, and it's able to bubble up into a balloon and sort of float, and then like drop as like a crystal shard spike. So it's super chaotic and beautiful. It's like dangerous, spiky, liquid death. So imagine an ooze that can flow under a door, float across a chasm, and then just land on you with its razor-sharp spikes and then start to engulf you. Really fun, super weird, dynamic combat. We've got the Tusara, which is one of our first, not our first, but one of our first sort of Nod native creatures. It's sort of like, it's a fey forest thing. It is a living poisonous mist that acts like a swarm. So when a light shines through it, this mist, the sort of swarming mist, can project any image to creatures who look at it. These are often confusing, like a dream. So you might see like people dancing, and then all of a sudden it shifts, and you're seeing like, you know, monsters clashing, or one of them turns into something else. So these sort of hallucinogenic, dreamlike images. It drifts through forests. It's very unpredictable and can be a savior or a murderer on a whim. So it could guide you out, and then like when you're within sight of land, it could turn around and kill you for no reason. It imitates intelligence, but it's not actually sentient. So it seems like it's more intelligent than it is. It's just very instinctive and strange. And it can leave a trail of poison to animals in its wake. It poisons as it goes. So the way you would know this thing is nearby is like poisoned wildlife. And then the last one is a widow spark, which is almost like a tiny arsonist revenant. It's this tiny elemental spirit that forms in the grief and rage of someone who has suffered a terrible loss due to violent injustice. It's an unquenchable flame that floats in midair, and it pursues the wrongdoer and lights their environment on fire. And the only known way to put out the widow spark is to kill the creature that seeks it out. So you can put it out temporarily, but it's going to recur until the creature that it is seeking dies. And those are the monsters. Then we get into the adventures, which we talked about last time, which are still in progress. So yeah, that's Primal, Dwarves, and Dragonborn. I mean, the Google Doc that we have, which is not even done yet, is 50 pages. So I think this is going to be a kind of a beefy resource, have a lot of cool stuff in it. And obviously it's plain GN, but it's intended to be something that you can bring into other settings as you want to enjoy. Okay. So that is it for Primal, Dwarves, and Dragonborn. We could look at some SSOP stuff really quick. See what we can see. I have it saved two ways on my computer. One is SSOP and one is plain Gia. And I always type SSOP, but the newer one is plain Gia. So I always gotta find that. Okay. Let's see. This is for people who don't care about the new homebrew stuff and want to talk about the book that you have, and you want to enjoy it as it is. So let's talk about something cool from here. We could pick anything. All of the stuff is good. Let's talk about a faction. I love factions. Let's talk about the Council of Day. Actually doesn't get a lot of airtime, so let's talk about them. All right, so the Council of Day is everyone's least favorite goody two-shoes. I think a lot of people look at them and are like, oh my gosh, I just found my campaign villains. And I think a reason for that is that player characters are agents of chaos. By virtue of the fact that you're rolling a die and sort of not literally constrained by the rules of society at all. You are, don't know the rules or choose to ignore them, just by virtue of, being a PC and not an NPC. I think that it's hard often to align with a lawful faction because you are inherently chaotic as a player. Even if you're playing a lawful character, you're still doing things that sort of break expectations, right? You're never just a town guard. You're always exceptional, and exceptions feel anti-lawful. So the Council of Day gets bad rap, and probably justifiably, they are out there, like, trying to get in everyone's business. But the fundamental idea behind the Council of Day is they are there to focus power in the hands of mortals. They are deeply invested in the advancements of civilization and society. And the sign of the hare in the recusants are magicians who are focused on advancing magic, but they don't really care about like clans or kingdoms or people. They just want to like escape or break down the hounds and advance magic. The Council of Day are specifically civilization builders. They want to prop up power. They want to enhance the cause of anyone who can help make something strong enough to stand against Plain Gia. Again, and by against Pangea, but against all the primal forces that are out to kill mortals in Pangea. And so they are called the Wandering Wise, Whispering Intruders, Solitary Elders, but they basically are they are people whose whole goal is to find someone who is amassing power and help them continue to amass power, which means they're often supporting villains, but it also means they're often supporting heroes. And I think if you wanted to play a campaign where the Council of Day was your patron, I think there's a really heroic way of spinning this, where the Council of Day people that you are interacting with are like, look, the world is out to kill us. We have to help the people who are carving civilization out of the wild. Go out there and help the people who are building. And, the moral version of this is help them amass power. And by the way, evil is destabilizing. Evil is ultimately not going to help build civilization. So the way that you can help someone gain power, help people groups gain power, is by making sure that you're toppling evil. So it really becomes sort of a nice player faction because it's very simple. It's just like, go into the world, and if you see a village, help the village. If you see a clan, help the clan. If you see someone who's trying to build a stronghold, protect the stronghold. You are there for people who are trying to carve a place out in this world, which is a lot of the sort of founding principle of playing Gia. The idea is that you are there to make a mark, to remain, to have an impact. So let's see. Let's look at some of the specifics. So, wherever leaders seek to establish peace, carve out stability, or promote order, the Council of Day is there to help, advise, and defend. The Council is a secretive network of accomplished elders and spellcasters who seek to shore up legitimate authority and strengthen centralized power throughout the Great Valley. So, like all factions, are meant to be able to be heroes or villains. You can totally play them as they don't care about good or evil, they're amoral, they only care about power, or not that at all. Okay, so they're friends of the powerful, they help those who are in authority. There are two councils, the Inner Council and the Outer Council. The Inner Council are like the NPCs in charge of it, and they are in charge of the network as a whole. The Outer Council are advisors and elders traveling through the world. They follow the Inner Council's directions and use their best judgment as things arise. Members of the council often use the sending spell, so if you're involved in the Council of Day, you might get sent messages from far away, giving you sort of your next quest. So it's really nice because you can kind of like, you don't have to get people back to town or to the clan fire to deliver your next plot hook. You're just able to be like, oh, you wake up one morning or in the middle of the night, hear your mentor say, hey, there's trouble in your area, we need you to go help. They can be called the Wandering Wise, and their arrival can be seen as a great blessing because they're really, the idea of the Council of Day is they're really experienced and they know what it takes to succeed. So if they show up at the clan fire of a struggling clan, it can be like, oh my gosh, you're here, you can tell us how to survive in this situation. So think about Gandalf coming into the halls of Theoden and like casting out evil and propping him up and giving him counsel. Like that's a Council of Day move. That's the forces of order standing up against the forces of chaos. They can also be seen as whispering intruders who stick their nose in and show up and sort of upset the balance of power. But we're looking at them as a good faction today, primarily. It's not about showing force, so there's no like army of the Council of Day, militia, although that could be you guys if you want it to be. But the idea is sort of, they seem fragile, they seem, like no big deal, and they just sort of show up solitary and say like, hey, can I give you some advice? They have a little pendant called the Daystar Pendant, which is the symbol of them, which it has like 4 little stones on it that if you pull them in, it glows. So it's a nice little object. DM can drop them on an NPC, or you all can have them, and they can be further enchanted if you want to add some other stuff to them. And then, let's see, often if a Council of Day member comes to a clan, they might get recruited to stay with that clan for a long time. So there are embedded Council of Day people who have been with the clan for a long time. This is a great sort of adventure starting hook. You've got, old whoever over there has been here forever, and everyone thinks of him as just one of the elders, and then as he's dying, he sort of presses his Daystar pendant into your hand and says, "You must accomplish this mission for me." We have the leaders, which is Pethna Riverborn, who's a half-elf archmage. I'm not going to go into these in detail. Embardo, I can't say my own names. Bardermos the Bull Voice is a male dwarf noble. He's the greatest orator in all of Plaingia. And then Anu, who is a half-ooze human archmage. She's really interesting. She's sort of the amoral force. Actually, all three of these leaders are lawful neutral, which is uncommon. Most factions have a spread of alignments, but these three all have specifically lawful neutral. So the leadership is, as written in the book, they don't care whether you're good or bad. They just want authority built. You, as a member of the Outer Council, might have a different opinion. And she is sort of the she's the heavy. She calls down fire from heaven on places that offend them. Their beliefs and behavior. So their philosophy is that survival depends on order and authority. The strong must be strengthened. Their ideal is authority. They're determined to root out chaos. Oh, this is fun. They are, in the same way that you have the Sign of the Hare and the Recusants as opposing factions. So the Council of Day and Cry as Children could not be more opposite. And the Council of Day will do anything it can to eradicate the infestation that is the Chaos Makers of Cry as Children. Their goals are directly opposite. And if you want Cry as Children as a villain in your campaign, be Council of Day, have that be your mentor, and all you're doing is trying to just eradicate, root out those, which makes for a really great spy campaign, by the way, because you're trying to go in sort of unseen, Cry as Children, operate in the shadows. So if you're looking for sort of a intrigue-filled campaign, Council of Day versus Cry as Children, on either side of that divide that your characters want to play is super fascinating. Let's see, amoral empowerment, we talked about that. They can help warlords if you want them to be villains, and then empire builders. So their long game is bring down the giant empires. Let's see, they've usually got some divination magic and enchantment magic. They dress kind of simply, and then there is let's see, there's the chamber door. So the inner council. Those three don't mean any specific location. Rather, they make an arcane space where they can gather secretly on an as-needed basis. And there's usually a door. So they use, I guess I'm thinking here of the Magnificent Mansion, probably, creating a space where they can meet and talk. And so your beginning of your adventure, some part of your adventure, you might just find this doorway that's clearly not a door to nod. It's something obviously a spell that is being cast, shimmering there, and then if you try and open it, you might stumble across some very important NPCs. And the quests that are here are reinforce authority, so show up and help someone who's strong, consolidate power, so help with marriages, alliances, clan fusions, play matchmaker, quell unrest, so if there's a revolt or rebellion, fighting against that. If you are on the side of the Council of Day, the rebellions can clearly be led by evil creatures or creatures under the influence of evil creatures. Obviously, if you are playing against them, then crushing a rebellion is something bad people do all the time. And then rooting out Cry as Children. So, yeah, that's kind of the look of them. We haven't talked much about them, so I thought they were worth looking at. I actually really like them as a really straightforward, clean and easy, you are lawful good, go out there and help build civilization. They can be really great. Or they can make really obnoxious secondary bad guys if you are playing a more directly chaotic campaign. Okay, I'm going to wrap this up in a couple minutes. I just want to talk briefly about Prismanox, which, if you haven't heard, you probably have, because I've been shouting it on all of my channels, is my new campaign setting that I made. It is a sci-fi and sorcery campaign setting, and the fun thing about it is I made it kind of as a brain break in the middle of Pangea. And it is an entire setting that is designed to fit on a movie poster, standard US size movie poster. The poster is already done. I'm going to make some changes to it as I continue to develop other stuff, but it's basically done. It's got the Forbidden Nebula, so it's got a nebula scale map with different sort of borders and places you can go, and then it's got a planet scale map, because the idea for Prismanox is that there is the whole nebula, but then the nebula has key planets, and those key planets have hexagonal hexagons of terrain, which are magically linked to other hexagons on other planets. So you're able to walk from planet to planet and bounce around the universe. Or you can hop aboard one of the ships, and there's sort of this Mobius strip of endlessly traveling ships that are moving through the universe. Or you can jump aboard a dart ship, which is like a bullet-style ship that is fired from a planet to smash into another planet. And sort of just like hope that nothing bad happens when you crash land there. Or you can travel through delve space, which is basically the idea that dungeons in Pangea are these magical wormholes that people open up, and that you use a dungeon, the delve space or the dungeon dimension, to travel between unlinked points, or between linked points. But delve space gets weird and things get in from the outside, and so, I made it to express space opera, sci-fi, sci-fantasy, with a really big like sword and sorcery flavor, because I love that. And to be able to do a lot of, frankly, overland travel, but in a sci-fi environment, because you don't get that often. Still lots of ship options, lots of things you can do there. It's very similar to Pangea in that it reflavors the stuff that's already there. One thing that's different from Pangea is, or I guess more emphasized than Pangea, is specific villain characters. So the villains in Prismanox are individuals, and they represent forces and they have forces, but there are specific villains that are sort of much larger than life, which is a very space opera approach. Rather than, the Empire, you have the Emperor, and you have to deal with the whole Empire to get to the Emperor, but he's the big bad. So this one sort of calls out a number of big bads. I've done a lot of work to look at what is a space opera and what is sword and sorcery, and how do those two things go together. And the three big themes, because I love my three themes, are visceral stakes. So what's happening has to matter, and it has to matter to your character. So it's never, I think hard sci-fi can be like, or like military sci-fi is, I'm in the military, I do this because I need to and I am. Visceral stakes is like, that thing killed my parents, or like insulted me and I'm going after it. Or, it's never like, we have to move the fleet over here. It's like, firing the cannons yourself. It's that sort of like blood pumping sci-fi. So visceral stakes is one. Grandiose intrigue. So your villains are not just sort of these passive forces. They are individuals. They're grandiose. Their ambitions are huge. I've got an AI that wants to become a god. I've got a sort of like rogue agent who has contacted other multiversal versions of themselves and pulled them into an alliance of evil. So these are really sort of like outsized villains that are also very intrigue driven. They want things, and they'll go through the halls of power to get them. So visceral stakes, grandiose intrigue, and then impossible horizons, just like places that you could never imagine, really cool spaces, and a lot of travel to get between those really two spaces and travel options. And the simplest version of a Prismanox game is get from point A to point B, and here are all the different ways to do it and all of the adventures that can happen to you along the way. I think it's really fun. I think you're going to like it. So if you haven't already, please go to the Kickstarter page I'll try and put a link in the description of this YouTube video. I've never really done this very much, so I'll try and do that, but if you don't know where it is, you can just look up Prismanox, which is spelled as it sounds, I guess, on Twitter, or if you're on the Discord server, just search on the server for the last time that was mentioned. It should get you there. It should all get you there. You'll find it if you want to find it. I hope you do. I hope you are into it. If you are interested in Prismanox at all, please do me a personal favor and hit the notify me on launch button on Kickstarter. It really, really helps me to know how many people are interested in the project. And I mean, ultimately, we won't launch it until enough people are interested. So if that sounds something that's exciting to you, please click that button. Tell your friends to click the button. The sooner we get up to like a good number of people interested, the sooner we can launch the campaign. Okay, I think that's it. I don't have any big announcements outside of any of that, and I feel like we talked about some fun stuff. Hopefully all of that sounds pretty cool to you. It's all a lot of fun to work on, and that's what I got. So let me know if you like this video. I'm gonna try and upload it to YouTube and share it with the Discord and Twitter. So let me know if this format works for you. Tell me, what you like or don't like. Let me know what tech stuff I need to improve. I am just going to check Patreon really quick, see if there are any new Patreon questions. I don't think that there are, but if there are, then I definitely want to answer them. Let me check. Hang on. Okay, one sec. I should have done this before the call, but I really want to make sure I get all of these. Okay, already answered all the questions, so we're good. That's it then. Thank you so much for joining. Hopefully this was interesting, and we'll probably do it again or do something else. If everyone hates this, we'll find out. Thanks for being part of it. See ya.